Hey everybody, it's your girl PJamma with PJamma Live. Oh man, I missed my streak. And today we're back with our October Spooky Fest, and we have several good things to watch today. We have uh the number one of What If. We have, for all of the lovers of horror, Candyman and the new Candyman. And we have it just went out of my head. Impeachment, which is a horror movie in and of itself. So let's introduce our guys. Welcome back to our guru of all things Marvel, which we are excited to have here for the finale of What If. Say hey to the people, Pat.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
And the supremacy guy of all things Star Wars, the supreme being himself, David. Say hey to the people.
Hello, everybody. And remember, this is the show you want to be watching Saturday nights. This is the show you want to bring in more of your friends to watch.
I will watch the show. It will be fabulous.
See? It will be. How could it not?
Woo! Okay. All right. Let's get started with our first show, which is Squid Games on Netflix.
In my town, we had a game called the Squid Game.
So this is it. I'll give you one last chance to choose. Will you go back to living your old and depressing lives, getting chased by your creditors, or will you act and seize this last opportunity we're offering here?
Where am I supposed to go, huh? Out there, I don't stand a chance. I do in here. No, I've got nothing out there.
So which kid game did you prefer? Why don't we start off with David? What did you think of Squid Game?
I thought this was absolutely incredible. Full of surprises, keeps you on the edge of your seat, speaks to you on many levels, tremendous acting. Even with, you're dealing with the dubbed language, or if you're watching it with the English subtitles, if that's your preference or what have you. Tremendous cast. This was a wonderful show. Couldn't stop watching it. So engaged. Plot twists.
Yeah.
Interesting kind of open door for a sequel that I hope they don't do. And I'll tell you, we can talk about that. But this was brilliant television. My hat off to the writers and the cast of Squid Games. This was great.
Pat, what'd you think?
Well, I will tell you, when I first started watching, I didn't want to like it. Because I thought, I'm like, okay, oh my God, here we go. Hunger Games. Hunger Games, Battle Royale, all the other kind of this pitting people against each other to the death thing that seems to have been kind of a dystopian, fun, go-to theme for a while. But I got to tell you, I was much more interested in the characters than I was in any of the Hunger Games stuff. I mean, I'd read the books, and yes, we followed Katniss Everdeen all through this crap, but I just didn't care that much about her. I mean, it was interesting. There were some interesting ideas in it, But this, I mean, the people in it, you really just connected with several. I did not watch the dubbed things because I cannot stand people's mouths moving. Godzilla version, is what I call it. I'll watch them speaking in Korean and I'll read the subtitles because, I know how to read. So let's do it that way. But oh yeah, I love the acting in it, the plot twist, and it got Game of Thrones brutal right up front.
Right.
And
right.
I was like, dang, but incredible twist towards the last parts of it. And and the theory that they kind of talked about, one last chance to play the game, and I was like, wow. And I don't want to give away spoilers, but there's so many things I want to talk about.
Let's dive into it, because at this point it's been like 4 or 5 weeks. It's been, I think 3 to 4 weeks it's been out.
Well,
so,
and you've got articles in all the major publications.
Yeah, Good Morning America covered it. I mean, so let's dive in, and we'll just tell people right now, here comes the spoiler section. So if you want to,
we're not trying to get rid of viewers, but if you don't want to hear this, you need to change the channel.
Yeah, and then dip back in like 5 to 10 minutes. So
you won't remember anything that we're talking about unless you want to.
Because I want to dive in. So
okay. So now that being said, okay,
we're giving you your warning, people. Cut out for a little bit.
Number one was amazing. That old guy.
Yeah.
What an acting job he put on. And, and man, you felt for him because he's like this old guy who's just trying to get through it.
Yeah.
And then the big twist at the end. I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a few extraneous points that I wasn't sure how much you had to drag into it. The cop, being the brother of the man in black, or whatever you want to call him.
I think that's a good twist, because I think there's something about that, and I'll talk about it when I talk about it.
Well, that seemed to be, it didn't further any parts of the story. It seemed like it was interesting, but I felt it was an embellishment that was just an extra little bit layer that they didn't really need to build into it. But I thought the whole idea of everybody got close, they kind of formed these teams. The weak team kind of came out because they were a balanced team as opposed to all just strength.
Right.
Super good.
Well, okay, so now I watched it twice. So because I watched it, but what first I want to talk about is the South Korean economy. So because that's what's underneath all of this, which we're very lucky in America that we have the financial rule. I mean, it seems like they're being trampled on, but imagine if there were not any at all. And so what you have is an economy that's gone from a kind of pay-as-you-go saver economy to a debtor economy. And so now, but without the financial restraints on banks and on loans, and like we have usury laws where you can't charge somebody more than, I think, 24 or 25% interest. They don't. So you see how people have become like stuck in 6 billion won of debt, which is, not that much money in US dollars, but 6 billion of anything, imagine trying to raise, and not for extravagant purchases. This is for rent, food, clothing, housing, things like that. That's basic necessities. Their economy is so a debtor society at this point that everybody's in pretty much a debtor's prison. So you have these unrestricted 2,000% loans and things like that. So people never get out of poverty. People never get out of debt. And that's what's kind of undergirding this. And which is a fascinating study in capitalism gone amok, right? If banks have their way, we'd all probably be like this. So that then sets up this desperation that you see in each of the characters when they start to lay out at the beginning how much debt a lot of the people are in. And then when you go and you calculate it, I had to look at Google to transform the rates. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And so you have people that are desperate to survive, then being placed in this game where they're being treated like horses. And so you see a lot of connections in those. It's important to watch, especially the second episode and the fourth episode, because there are a lot of clues about what's going to happen to each of the characters in those episodes. And so I thought that was super clever about what was going to happen to each of them. And another important part of it is the thought of swearing on something or making a promise. And then what happens if you break your promise, you break your word. That's a very much in their culture, a very strong held value of you honor your word. And so when you have these situations where people don't honor their word, you see what happens. And so I thought that, if you watch closely and listen to it closely, you can kind of figure out what's going on. And I know if I say it's like this movie, it might give it away to too many people, but it's like should I say it? Should I
just say it?
Go say it. Say it.
I felt like it was a demented Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and and with Saw mixed in. And so, I was like, how clever. But I think what's interesting, Pat, I disagree with you about the second season. The author, the writer just came out because he was like, I'm done. This is taking too much out of me. He understands the story because he was this story. So at some point while writing it, he was so broke, he had to sell his laptop in order to get money for food and for rent. He was so down and out. And then he went back. So it took him, I think, 10, 12 years for it to be made. And so, this whole thing about struggling artists too is, we need to pay artists to create. And anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But he said just recently that he wants to do a second one, but it would have to be, he would need help writing the story. So we might see a Squid Games 2, because I would like to see the international version. So is there a Squid Games, in the UK? Is there a Squid Games in the US? Is there a Squid Games in Africa? So I would like to see it. And so I would like it to become a world like John Wick. And you can see different stories in different places. I think that would be fascinating. So what do you all think of kind of the undergoing story? Because there's several things of not just greed, but choices, how the impact of your choices have long-term impacts, keeping your word. Even in the game, even though it's a deadly game, you still have to depend on people. What do you guys think of those kind of themes throughout?
The desperation of the people really grabbed me. I mean, and again, spoilers, they actually, as Section 3 of the contract that they read, that they had to sign, if the majority vote to cancel the game, they can leave.
Yeah, at any time.
And so many people, they came back.
Yeah,
they came back because they had nowhere else to go. This was a chance, and so it just showed where their lives were, the situations that they were in. That was powerful. But I also love you saw the story arc of the lead, 456.
Yeah.
Where, he took birthday money to the track. And here he was, he tied himself up. And he showed some shortcomings like anybody would here. But he tied his fate to an old man when everybody around him said, that's a bad move. I loved it when he took off his coat. The old man had soiled himself, and he used to cover him so he'd have some dignity. And he stayed with him. Showed some weakness and, with the whole marble game, but he had stayed with him for the longest time. I thought that was really a powerful thing. I did kind of I want to watch it again because I wonder about the young lady being a refugee from North Korea. And then again, this totalitarian, horrific regime, just like the People's Republic of China, a totalitarian nightmare dystopia for all of its citizens and for the world if we're not careful. But it seemed like, she flees that tyranny and she's still in a desperate situation. So I thought that was an interesting kind of mirror look, is she went from something nightmarish to something where her choices were still limited.
And Ali is a character that kind of speaks to the immigrant experience, right? And that they're being exploited for their labor and not paid because they're told, okay, well, you're not a citizen anyway. I just take your money and do whatever. And so you see that, and the characteristics of each of the person is mirrored in the game. So that's what's also very fascinating too. And so his was the probably the most sad story in all of it, because he was a good person and made the right decisions all throughout the game, the moral right decisions throughout the game. But because he's in a fixed game, they don't work for him. So the game is corrupt. And so then you have to become corrupt in order to win. So I thought that was a really powerful message about, the society and kind of where sometimes I think we're falling into these traps now. Pat, what did you think?
Well, obviously, you point out Ollie's getting exploited so effectively in the marble game. That was a good mirror of the immigrant experience, where you come up, you do the work, and all of a sudden you don't get the money, or what are you gonna do? Go to the courts? Nah, you can't go to the courts, and you get fleeced by, ironically, but not ironically, the banker, business genius who jacked up and lost a crap ton of money. So, and which I thought was an interesting thing, that he was one of the ones who kind of make it all the way through this, was the banker, the businessman, because he did some sketchy crap all through this thing.
Yeah.
And that's how he got hit.
He
was mirroring maybe his profession to a certain extent, whereas, and you had Ollie, who just did hard work and tried to get along, and then you had the standoffish refugee, and there's a lot of interesting social commentary on the choices of the backgrounds of each one of these characters too, that made that you got a little bit involved with. There was 200 of them we didn't know because they got killed in the first episode, right? But a whole crap ton of them. I was like, damn, that was, like I said, Game of Thrones moment. It was I watched it once. I just finished a couple nights ago, and some of it's still, percolating through. But if you haven't watched this, you should be watching this. I tell you, because and I understand it's in a foreign language for those of you that are out there that are a little bit hesitant about watching foreign films. This is one of the ones you probably should be watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of those people, Pat. I'm one of those people. I'll wait till the Americas redo it. This story, though, the way it is, absolutely. This story, though, I would say I stand fully corrected. The acting is tremendous. The humanity. This is a story. While certainly there are things about this that's very South Korea, North Korea specific. I think it speaks to that culture in that part of the world. At the same time, there are human issues here that transcend. And the story just does a beautiful job of bringing that. The goodness and the horror that makes up a human being, the inconsistencies. The banker did some good things. Banker did some bad things at the end to save his life, among other things. But he did show some examples of decency too. So I loved this, and that's why I just want to let it lie. Let it just stop where it is.
Stop.
I don't think they can make this better.
I don't know.
I don't want to see an American one. I don't want to see an English one.
I want to see it.
I want to see it. everybody
then there you would get your English version.
Huh?
There you would get your English version.
Let's see, The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Richard Dawson, kind of this.
No.
The Running Man. It was a game show. A little similar.
It was a broadcast, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was in the old game. There was an old movie with James Caan about that, where
rollerball.
Rollerball.
Yeah.
But this was something that really was unique. And the games, the fact that some of the games were not known, some of the games we knew, tug of war, some of the games were not. I also thought that made it a novel experience for many people, certainly me. I wasn't familiar with Squid Games and those things, but man, it got me hooked within 5 minutes. Couldn't look away.
Yeah. And so definitely, and I'm telling you, South Korean cinema, Netflix has got a ton of great ones right now. So definitely don't let the lack of being able to speak Korean, because actually that was another interesting thing. I watched it in dubbed and with the subtitles on, because they have that option. The subtitles and the spoken word, it's totally different at times. So it was an interesting kind of look at the use of language in this too. So definitely, this gets a huge thumbs up for Squid Games. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Okay, come back. Okay, we're done talking about Squid Game. So
it's like a whole show. Easily a whole show.
I know. There's so much in there. There's so much meat. But let's talk about next the finale of It's All Been Going Towards This. What if?
Leave this fight to us.
I got it. Yeah. Hang back with the giant baby man cape dude.
Star-Lord T'Challa, leader of the Ravagers and lost prince of Wakanda. You have been chosen. Captain Carter, the soldier lost in time. You have been chosen.
We were about to go on a date. There was gonna be flowers, and I was gonna light candles, and I was gonna shower and do my hair.
Thor Odinson, Crown Prince of Asgard.
And you!
You've been chosen.
Haven't you too?
Thor.
And you!
Calm down. Thor Odinson, Crown Prince of Asgard. You've been chosen.
Let me get this straight. You kidnapped us from across the galaxy so we could, what?
Save the universe?
Not exactly. Bit more complicated than that.
You aren't just our best hope to save one universe.
You are my last hope to save all of them.
Wow. Let's start with our guru of Marvel. Pat, hit us up. What you think?
Okay. Watcher can't do that stuff. He can't
That's
take
what I'm saying, man.
He's the Watcher. It's in his name right there. He's not the doer. He's not the kidnapper. He's not the team former. He's the Watcher. That's what he does. He does not.
Wow.
Okay. After I got past that, I was like,
okay, we're past that one.
It's what if, I guess, what if the Watcher was able to do whatever the hell he wanted to? I did enjoy it. It was a nice wrap up of the season, bringing in elements from all the shows that they had did. So you could see, there was a point to watching a random episode about Captain Carter or, what if Star-Lord was, T'Challa was Star-Lord. You have to see how they brought that all together, which is a nice wrap up. I don't know if they'll do that again next season or if they're even going to have a next season. I don't know if they even.
Yeah, I still haven't heard.
I haven't either. So, I really did enjoy the way they kind of put everything together. Kind of fun. Evil Doctor Strange.
We're kind of like not loving it.
Well, I had problems with it, like I said, because the initial premise of the whole thing is here's the Watcher dragging everybody around, which is what the Watcher don't do. So that was always kind of just like a popcorn kernel in your tooth while you're enjoying the popcorn. That one kernel's just bugging you a little bit. But great episode. I loved the use of the Doctor Strange, the evil Doctor Strange, using all the stolen magic he had done to save to go back and save his girlfriend during that time. He's stealing all that magic, trying to fix time, and he did some pretty cool. And I mean the idea of the magical armor was super cool. I thought.
Yeah.
I dug that a lot. It was a great visual. It was good. It was really good. It wasn't my favorite episode out of the entire series by a long shot.
Huh.
The Captain Carter episode is still the best.
Huh. Okay. Okay. David, what'd you think? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Captain Carter is the female superhero everybody's been waiting for, in case you didn't know. She makes Wonder Woman look weak. Wonder Woman was weak comparatively. Captain Carter was Captain Carter was Captain Carter was everything, man. She had that together. She was better than Captain Marvel, and you saw her in episode 2. Yeah, way better. So anyway, okay, enough of my Captain
I
Carter.
think you just like her because she reminds you of your wife. You can tell her I said that too.
Okay, I will. I'll tell her that. She'll raise her eyebrow and go, okay.
She'll go, I'll take that.
I'm sure she will.
Right.
David, what'd you think?
Well, I think I was really surprised when they brought the Watcher into the story last episode, because I saw him more as like the narrator from the Twilight Zone, not an active participant in these.
Right.
So when they did that, I thought that this was a great way to kind of put it together. I think I probably would have preferred these as one-off standalone episodes of the many possibilities that are there.
Uh-huh.
I think also, while it's a creative exercise, it's also an exercise of saying, hey guys, the best ideas we had were in this first set of movies that we all put together, and we're not really sure how the rest of it's going to go. So let's just kind of take the same thing and mishmash it a little bit around, and hopefully we keep your interest, because we don't know if the next round of heroes and the next round of stories are going to be as captivating, is kind of my outsider view. They've been entertaining. I love the fact that you would see, hear the voices of so many of the real people, the real actors who brought these characters to life on the screen. That was wonderful. Chadwick Boseman, again, I didn't expect to see or hear him again. So that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was good, but the doer, again, I expected the Watcher to be on the sidelines at best, an obnoxious Twitter reporter for a ball game, not somebody who was actively engaged. But it's an interesting story nonetheless. A good use of time here as we gear up for some of our other fun Disney Plus genres to be seen in December and November coming up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bunch coming out here. I think Hawkeye starts next month. And
we never have done Black Widow yet on this show, and it's out on regular Disney Plus now too.
Didn't we do Black Widow? Yeah.
I think we did.
We talked about it. You might not have been there.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe
I might have missed it.
I might have missed it.
But it is coming on it's already on Disney.
Currently on, yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I think as an aside, I thought it's great. She got her payday from Disney like she should have. Yeah. So now they're also doing a lot of promotion of Black Widow all throughout Disney Plus. So, sometimes you got to fight for what's right. And I'm glad she took it to them. And they, did the right thing by her, because for a lot of movies, they didn't. So I'm glad.
And it's a big deal right now going on. There's some talk about some of the different support groups. I mean, not support groups, but I mean the support staff and those that help make the movies. They might be going on strike.
Oh, well, there's a huge issue with, let me come back to that and talk about what I thought of the episode. I thought it was a great episode because I thought it was such a great wrap up, because I wasn't expecting it. And throughout the season, y'all have seen me go, this is dark. This is dark. I don't like all this darkness. I don't like it. I don't want to watch it. If they don't straighten up, I ain't going to watch it anymore. And then whoop, they flipped the script on me and did a very powerful kind of, this is why all of this happened the way it happened. So I totally get it now. And so I'm glad I stuck with it, because it was a question there that Stephen Strange one. I was like, I don't know about this. But I really liked how they did the story. But one thing I really liked was in every universe, the characters still had the same flaws, right? Killmonger, same flaws. Thor, same flaws, just kind of exponentially get Ultron, same flaws, so it was very fascinating to me to see that you are who you are, wherever you go, there you are. And on the multiversal stage. And so I thought that was really interesting too, that many of the characters still made similar choices. You didn't see them make a different kind of choice. And I thought that was really interesting, how they came out. So I really enjoyed it. It was one of the better ones actually for me. And maybe it's also because they didn't end with Ultron eating the universes, and then that was the end of the story.
Zombie Thanos would have been the great end of the story.
I mean, but I did think that there was some things I was like, because okay, Uatu, the Watcher, is a being of creation, right? He's like a supreme being. But you got to still fight a robot.
Well, but the robot had the Infinity Stones, which makes him pretty godlike,
Still with these Infinity Stones working in several universes, I don't know about that. I still am like, I don't know about that. But the way they kind of provided a rational explanation, I didn't like it, but it was a good explanation. I was okay with it. I was like, okay, y'all brought it together, so I'll give it a pass. But very enjoyable. Definitely, you have to watch it, all of them, to get to the superhero, beat of it. So definitely check out What If. Now, back to the behind the scenes stuff of what's going on at Disney, because Disney's about to lose the copyright to some of these properties because it's about to expire. So right now, some of the families are in dispute with the companies because they didn't get proper, they didn't get their due back in the day, and all this time they haven't been paid the way they should be paid. And really, Disney, I mean, y'all got billions and billions and billions of dollars. Break these families off, a few $100 million or whatever, for you've made billions off of these movies, and the families have gotten, in some cases, $5,000 for movies that their parents or grandparents have created, and then they get $5,000 when a movie that made billions comes on. I mean, come on now, it's not right. So I'm hoping the families prevail and they are given, their copyright or paid for it, and Disney does the right thing. I mean, I think Marvel and Disney, they got over long enough. Just pay what you owe. As Riley on the Boondocks said to Santa, pay what you owe. Pay what you owe. So that's what I think. Have you all heard something about this?
I had heard a little bit about, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Stan Lee's or Stan Ditko's or one of the the creators of Spider-Man or the creator of the X-Men or whatever. I think it was usually it's basically creation credits is what we're looking at. I think from what I've heard, it wasn't because and they sold the movie rights to, back in the 70s. So okay, we're gonna say the movie rights for 30 years for Spider-Man, and they make a lame ass Spider-Man thing. Nothing happened with this. Like okay, forget about it. But they still got that contract for 30 years, and they come up here and now the CGI and the special effects have gotten to the point where they can actually do this stuff. But they're getting to the point, they were paid $5,000 in 1970 for something that was, at that particular point, an impossibility to make probably right. So that they sat on that, and well now that's about to expire, like you say, well, it's gonna be time to pay the piper. These people are not gonna say, okay, well, it's not like you're trying to make a real Spider-Man, but you can make a CGI one pretty darn good. So let's, pay for my dad's, although Stan Lee's daughter sounds like she was really terrible from everything I've read about her. So I really don't think she needs any money, but that's just me because I've seen so much stuff about her and the ongoing battles she's had with her father's estate because she sounds kind of like a little bit of a mooch, but
I mean, I don't know about that family drama, but it's back to kind of Squid Game. These corporations and these big entities are taking advantage of the little guy, and it's just time for that kind of thing to end. So I'm just really hoping that they just do the right thing, just do the right thing for once, and then everybody can be happy and everybody can get what they want. I'm a win-win kind of person, and this is one of those situations. So
corporations will never do, the quote-unquote right thing or the fair thing unless they're required to.
Yeah,
contracts,
they got to get their comeuppance.
And Disney is like all powerful. I mean, when you think about what they've owned, and they've taken a bit of a financial hit here and there. On a slightly off topic, there was a great conversation on the Star Wars message boards about a startup company that had created customized play sets for Star Wars stuff. So it looked like Star Wars stuff. It wasn't called Star Wars. Like space walls, kind of looked like what the inside of Death Star might. Well, anyway, they were doing, startup. They're doing their thing. They got the license from Disney to make their play sets. And you'd think at that point it was going to be like, they've got the blessing now, those cease and desist orders. They got the open road to make money. Disney, from the point of view of the owner of this business, they micromanaged their process, dictating so much of what they could and couldn't do. The factories that they had to use over the factories they've been using for their quote knockoff, which was really great product in all honesty, tremendous job on the plastic. This company wound up having to file for bankruptcy. And based on the micromanaging of Disney. That's obviously their perspective. It is what it is, but it is an example of how controlling and powerful that Disney in particular, but all of these kind of corporations would be over their product. And they don't want to give anybody anything. Coal mines didn't pay people in real money till they had to. I mean, that's a statement.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And I hope they prevail, but but that's a tactic too. Remember, there was a number of years ago, Walmart bought up, they had Vlasic pickles in the stores, right? So Vlasic pickles.
Oh, okay.
With the bird on it, and he kind of had that voice. What was it, Groucho Marx's voice?
Groucho Marx's voice, yeah.
And so Vlasic, everybody knew Vlasic. Well, Walmart decided if they wanted to be in their stores, they would put their great value label on Vlasic and not sell Vlasic as Vlasic anymore. So these companies do this kind of crap all the time, but they made it so that the company then had no choice but to comply with what they wanted. So it's just another, example of, corporations taking advantage. But I think the thing that's different now is social media. So you can damage a company pretty badly through social media, where the little guy hasn't had that power before. Well, now they do. So, these companies have to, in some ways, operate a little bit differently than they have in the past. So we'll see. I hope, that situation is resolved, but I definitely hope that the people who are some of the original creators of these Marvel and products really are treated fairly and for what they're worth. Yeah. So let's go on to, this is going to be a long show. So let's go on to the new Candyman.
Where it all began was in the 1890s. The story of Daniel Robitaille. He made a good living touring the country painting portraits for wealthy families. They love what we make, but not us.
Okay, ready? Candyman.
Candyman.
Candyman. Candyman. Candyman.
Tell everyone.
Oh, and before we get started, I want to say hey to Tim Windsor. He's back this week. We've had a good streak of Tim making it on the show. So, hey, welcome, Tim. And I can see by Patrick's face, I need to ask him, who saw it in the theaters, what he thought.
I did. I saw it in the theaters, yes. What I thought, okay. Visually, it was amazing. I got to tell you, I love the silhouette animation style that they used. That was super cool, wonderfully captivating, and it was a nice. I really dig that kind of stuff, and I thought that was super cool the way they did that. You could still see the wires, and it wasn't so. It felt kind of low tech, but it was pretty damn high tech. It was pretty cool. I liked it, and there were a lot of themes going on this movie. Yeah. A lot of themes going on. You had gentrification, you had police brutality, you had I don't know, some cultural appropriation going on. There's all kinds of stuff going on that, and it was a horror movie. I mean, it didn't rely as heavily as I expected it to, because generally horror movies tend to rely on the jump scare. Yeah. And it had a few of those, but they did a really good job of building suspense, I thought, throughout it, rather than the jump scare and gore fest. There was a lot of gore, yes, there was tons of gore, but the bite that just kept growing. A lot of neat stuff going on there. I enjoyed it. I did. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big horror fan, but I enjoy them every now and then. It's Halloween. We're supposed to be watching horror movies, so here we are. It was good. I give it a thumb up. Yeah.
Okay, David, what'd you think?
It's all right. I think it was.
Spit it out, David. What'd you really think?
It's fair. I like the whole premise behind it. Thinking back to the original, which I watched yesterday to kind of do a compare contrast.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big horror guy.
As good as the first one, or
I think the first one was better. I think in some respects, rewatching that now, as they talked about urban legends, and urban legends kind of go hand in hand with conspiracy theories, which has really been at the forefront of so much of what's been going on the past few years. So that that really kind of resonated. It's a gore fest. It gets you ready for things. In terms of horror movies, I'll take my Scream 3, 4, 5 movies and the TV shows over this. But none of it high on my list.
What was it you didn't like about it?
Well, yeah, it's just the gore. The gore.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing of it that I don't like.
You can do scary without being too. I mean, suspense is a lot more important, I think, for a good scary movie than showing someone's leg breaking and the bone sticking out of the skin. You know, or whatever, or guts rolling out of their midsection, whatever. I mean, whatever the gore.
It's too gratuitous.
It's too gratuitous. It's I get it. It's part of the stylized dance that people expect from a horror movie.
Yeah.
You need to have this much gore, or this much buckets of blood, or whatever. I'm sure there's a formula somewhere that we've never seen, but it just always feels obligatory and performative, I guess is what I'm saying. And here we are. We have to put this in here. We all got to do this. Okay, let's the best horror movies are the ones that don't show a lot of stuff, and they make you use your imagination, and they build, and they keep you just on the edge of your seat. That's a good horror movie.
You described it really well.
Yeah, and with this one, I think one of the problems was you literally saw them drop in a horror scene with the girls in the bathroom.
Oh God, yeah, that was
completely out of place in the whole movie. It was like that, and then the kid doing that. I was just kind of like, what? That didn't even fit. And I watched it a couple times because I was like, well, maybe I'm not being fair.
You're brave.
But I know. And so, but I did like how it was tying in relevant themes today of gentrification. And I think both movies dealt with gentrification.
Yeah.
And I think that was a nice through line that they had looking at Chicago. They actually filmed in Cabrini Green that is still there today. It doesn't have the high rises that it had back then, but the kind of low rises they still have. So they were able to film in Cabrini Green again. And so that was really, really nice to see. And so you got to see kind of the gentrification in real time in that landscape there. Because if you think about that's valuable property, it's right in the heart of Chicago. It's like if they had a chance to take over that land, I mean, that's high dollar value property. And so, but the story didn't make sense. I couldn't figure out. And watching it twice, sometimes when I watch it again, I get it. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. But this one I was trying to figure out. I couldn't figure out who was actually Candyman and who was doing the killing. I was confused about who killed the kids in the bathroom, who killed the people at the art show, who killed the people. I was confused. And so it was like, wait, are there 2 killers? Are there 3 killers? Or I don't know. And if you don't know, and didn't know in a bad way, because sometimes when you don't know because it's suspenseful, that's the best. But this you just couldn't figure it out because it was like, it looked like some committee came in after she directed it and shot it and said, oh no, you got to add this in, you got to add that in, and that's going to make, it's kind of like by committee, people started meddling with it.
Did Kathleen Kennedy have a role in this?
I don't know, but I think it's Blumhouse. So no, I don't think so. But I think that Blumhouse usually does, and they did here, another good way of taking what's going on now and turning it into something horror. And but then they just messed it up, probably in the after room stuff of what she was trying to do. But I thought it was very powerful. The shadow puppets at the end where they went, that is incredible. So it saved it from being terrible, absolutely horrible, to being like, dang, they just missed an opportunity to do something.
I can see
really
that.
good.
You're right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of a mixed review on Candyman. I mean, it's definitely not for kids. I'll be taking your kids to see it. But definitely watch it with somebody and have a conversation about what it's talking about. Because I think they have a lot of relevant things to talk about in terms of police violence against Black men, about the treatment of minorities in these communities. And I mean, one of the most powerful things was when the Candyman was attacking people, the police come and they like just start shooting the wrong people. And it's like, what? It didn't even make sense. And then how that whole
real, no.
Yeah, and how that rolled out. That's why it was so horrific. How then it rolled out. I was like, okay, that's clever. And so it's little things like that. I know she was trying to do that, it just it worked in some ways, and then people stuck their fat mitts in it and messed it up. So definitely it's a mixed review on Candyman. So that's why I say watch it and then tell us what you think when you subscribe to our channel. Please do so. Okay, so yeah. So the final is today, impeachment. ACS.
I've asked Paul to take every piece of evidence we have on President Clinton and Whitewater and put it all into one document so we can take a look and decide, do we have enough to recommend impeachment?
No, not today. Not yet. Come on, Kavanaugh! Huh? You don't think we should just quit?
I never like to take no for an answer, but Jackie, there isn't a path forward here.
It doesn't matter what we believe. It matters what we can prove.
She's gonna get the dress cleaned.
What? That stain is white gold.
No one supports women more than me.
I heard that they offered you $700,000. Do just watch out for her.
Okay.
When you're a friend of the Pentagon, she doesn't know.
If you're gonna be wired, you're gonna be wired by the FBI.
Man, this was an episode, but next week is going to be the whole shebang coming up. But and Dwayne DeMarcos, hey Dwayne, he makes a good point that it's shot so dark. You gotta like have an LED light to try and figure out some of these scenes. They're shot so darkly. So, David, what did you think?
It's a great point about the lighting. Last thing I saw that was anywhere near as dark was Solo. I mean, and that blue light, I don't understand it. I love this. It is the train wreck of my youth. I can't stop watching it. We talked about this, I think it was last week, Pam. Mm-hmm. I really was wanting to see the other ultimate evil person in this, or whose actions were evil, and that was Ken Starr.
Yeah.
And now I thought, man, the Furlong from Veep, I didn't think that actor could find a cruddier person to portray than and boom, the president of Baylor shines bright here. The eyes of Texas are upon that moron. And man, another really good episode. It shows the evil here. There's the pain. I didn't catch that white gold comment.
Yes. Yeah.
Nasty. That's nasty.
It's so gross.
But, it's just really well done. All the performances, really home run. I think these are great. I love the way this Linda Tripp, if this is accurate, I mean, if these words are accurate, I mean, the sense of self-importance she had.
Oh, yeah.
Almost. I have to rewatch it. Did she think she was like tried to get murdered? Like was she one of those who's thinking Vince Foster was killed off? Did she think she was one of those? I mean, it was fascinating. The whole aspect of her love of Christmas, and yet being this Grinch, this horrible friend. It just the juxtaposition of that really stands out to me. So another good episode. Good.
I mean, this woman is doing a bang up job, because I mean, if you remember Linda Tripp back then, I mean, she just embodies her. And we, of course, know people like this in government. You know, they get these jobs and they figure that they're more Jesus than Jesus. I mean, you know, it's like they are so important and they're not in the grand scheme of things.
But you'll see people like that in all walks of life. But
yeah,
it's probably more dangerous in government. But nonetheless.
Yeah. But there's a particular type in government that, you know, they just, and you're around them and you just go, girl, if you don't sit down somewhere. That's what somebody needed to do to Linda Tripp and be like, girl, if you don't sit down and shut up. But Margot Martindale is, if she don't get an Emmy nomination, I don't know. She brings the right kind of like meanness, but funny, but you know, and but a truth teller. You know, she told Linda Tripp when she said one of it was Linda Tripp was told by her lawyer that she was not safe to record Monica on the phone, that it was illegal in Maryland and she could definitely go to jail for doing that. It was a crime. And she called Margot Martindale's character and she was like, you can't do that in Maryland. And she was like, well, you can in New York. Well, everybody doesn't live in New York. Well, that's a problem for all those people who refuse to live in New York.
Yeah, that was a great line. I don't know if she's got a big enough role for
everyone should. You know, it was just like so
awesome.
snarky and so awesome. But what is really telling is that, you know, all of this, because it's not what they did, it's that they were looking to have anything. And you can see from there what they were saying. They were looking for anything to get Clinton and impeach him out of office. And they happened to stumble across this. And it just so happened that this was something that they could pin on him and make it. This wasn't something that was new in government and at the higher levels of government. But like they said, it was a different time. And so the things that might have been able to get away with in olden days, you couldn't get away with anymore. And rightly so. You know, people should have never been able to do that. And so, but did it rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors? No, we've seen real high crimes and misdemeanors.
Yeah. But this was kind of like an opening gate for that on all aspects, because on one hand, no one really took the misuse, the abuse of power that, and typically it's been a man, the sexual harassment, man in a supervisor position over a woman here. They didn't really take that. I mean, the charge was perjury. And the fact that you've got people who are not willing to tell the truth under oath, that's a real problem. And that needs to be prosecuted. But since they weren't caring about the sexual harassment, it was just it was infidelity. That it crossed into a new line there. I mean, there's so many presidents for infidelity who no doubt would have lied about it under oath if they'd had.
They all would have lied.
They're on a train somewhere back with the 27 Yankees. The sports writer saw Babe Ruth in his underwear running through the train cars with a woman with an axe behind him. And one reporter said to another, boy, it's a lucky thing for all the kids out there that we didn't see what we just saw. Yep. And then they proceeded to go back to breakfast. What Kennedy got away with, Clinton couldn't. But this era of no shame, which really just kind of came out here with the Clintons and on, we see what we've got now, or what we've just had, and what's threatening to come back.
But I think that it speaks to the depths that the Republican Party had to dig and delve and become. That now, well, shouldn't really talk about that, but it sank low, but it's gotten lower. And so, at this point, they're about to hit magma. You know what I mean? This is like a shovel in, but it's definitely gotten lower since then. So it's going to be next week. This episode was a little light to me. It was interesting to see the whole lunch with the whole Linda trying to create like a Mission Impossible situation out of it. And but next week you get into the real drama of the investigation and the hearings and all of the drama around that. So I think we only have a few more episodes left of Impeachment. And I think it'll be really worthwhile to check out these next few episodes. So definitely check it out. It's a good episode. I think they're running a marathon on FX today. I think it started at 6:00. So you can catch up on the episodes, and it's also on demand.
Well, let me ask before we go too far. Pat, don't you wish you were in DC with Pam and me when all this was happening?
Oh my gosh!
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
It was
ain't
fun,
that bad.
though. It was. I mean, looking at the newspaper on the way to the metro, on the metro to DC, reading the newspaper, it was always something. I mean, it was like the National Enquirer in NPR language. You know what I mean? It was something else. So that is it for us today. Woo, we gone a little bit over, but we had so much to talk about, and it was so good. And okay, so before you might not have known, which game you would have picked, but which game would you think you would come out of if you didn't have to kill people? Which game would you pick on Squid Game? It will
the stop and go one. Red light, green light.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go marbles because you've got some options there.
Yeah. I think I liked red light, green light. That seemed the most egalitarian, right? Just run up there. There wasn't any chance to get hurt. I mean, by somebody else. You just had to make it and go and stop. That seemed the most interesting. Well, that does it for us this week. Next week, we'll be back with, it's a good batch. We're going to do Impeachment. We're going to do Mute on Netflix. We're going to do, also on Netflix, Dave Chappelle's new comedy special, The Closer, and Addams Family Values 2. I think it's on HBO Max. And so we will see you next week. Fellas, you want to say goodnight to the people?
Well, good night, everybody. Sleep tight and don't say Candyman 5 times into a mirror.
Please don't.
Good night, people. Take care.
Take care. Be well. Be happy. Get your vaccine if you can. And subscribe to PJamma Life. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you guys.
See y'all.